Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Courage to Change, a Recovery podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We just wanted to let you know that this recording was done with a different software, so it's going to sound a little bit different than our normal sound quality, and I would love for you to hang in there with us as we have an amazing guest and interview coming on. In this episode, we will be interviewing Brittney Carbone. Brittney Carbone is a Santa Monica-based fitness professional, a certified personal trainer. She is a UCLA graduate and has maintained 65-pound weight loss. She is a person in long-term recovery. She has a program called Lean Lifestyle Method, which starts in a couple weeks, and we are going to hear about her amazing journey and courage to change. All right, episode 4, let's do this. Brittney, I'm so excited to have you on the Courage to Change. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so awesome to be here, and it's so good to see your beautiful face.
Oh, likewise. Thanks for coming. All of our listeners don't know how amazing you are, but I really, really want them to hear about this amazing journey that you've had with your recovery. And it's nothing short of miraculous. And the best part, I think, of your story is that your recovery began deep in your sobriety, that you were already sober for many years before you actually made an even bigger change. So I'm just really excited for everybody here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and what your life was like early on?
Yeah, of course. And thank you for your kind words. Let's see, I was born in August of 1986. No, I grew up in San Clemente. And in San Clemente, California, so Orange County kid. Grew up in a totally surfer / I would say kind of money surfer area. Our street was 11 houses. We had a big white gate on the street. And my interesting part about that is that my perception was clearly off, because when I was a kid, I thought I grew up in the hood. Like, I thought I had it really hard back then. And it's so interesting to look back and like, wow, my perception was really off from day one. Like, I didn't have any understanding of what real life was. And so, yeah, I grew up in San Clemente. I went to San Clemente High School. I grew up playing soccer, I was surfing, snowboarding, active kid. Grew up, I had 3 older sisters, 1 full sister, 2 half sisters. My parents got divorced when I was really young. And I had my dad who lived in Canyon Lake. So we had summers on the lake and school years at the beach. And it was just, by all intents and purposes, a really good upbringing.
Yeah. And I kind of see where you come, like, it's so easy to feel like you live in the hood when you live in Orange County, because if you compare, like, depending on what you're comparing it to, like, oh yeah, this does feel like the hood. So, yeah, I see that. What was the first time that you ever interacted with your drug of choice, or maybe not your drug of choice, any substance?
Well, any substance. So we're going to count sugar as a substance here?
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. What am I saying? Yeah.
I'm like, well, I was from a very, very young age. I would say, like, my earliest childhood memories are like 5, of just going in. We had a walk-in pantry, going into the walk-in pantry with a spoon, sitting on the floor and just eating sugar straight out of the bowl. My mom would put it in this plastic container, and I would just sit there, spoon after spoon, eating sugar on the floor. That was my first interaction with that.
That's amazing. That's like straight to the hard stuff.
Oh yeah. I would have snorted it if I knew how.
Yeah, totally. It's your purity. So, okay. So you're doing this, and what do you remember any of the stuff you were thinking at the time, other than like, yay, sugar?
Yeah. I think that I really liked the taste, but what I think and if I look back at it, I don't think, 5-year-old Brittney was like, oh my God, I'm going to go into the cupboard and numb out. But when I look at it, I think that that's what I was essentially doing is, if there was an argument in the house, or if, something was upset, or dad was upset, or if, I knew there was kind of turmoil going on, then I would run to the cupboard and sit on the floor. And it was just like what I did,
Yeah.
Just how I kind of dealt with anxiety.
Right, right. So it was the first coping skill.
First coping skill for sure. Yeah.
And what came after that?
Lots. I mean, sugar was a huge part of my early childhood. I mean, through my whole still, it was part of my life still. But after that, the first, the next new substance, I would say, was alcohol for sure.
And of course, alcohol metabolizes into sugar.
Yeah, alcohol. Well, let me rephrase that. Actually, I moved from sugar on the floor to getting bubblegum cigarettes from the ice cream man. And then we would light them and try to smoke them.
Bubblegum cigarettes that I was like, they have bubblegum cigarettes? Oh my God.
You're like, wait a second.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. I feel like I missed something very important. Okay, no, you tried to smoke actual bubblegum.
Yeah, we tried to smoke actual bubblegum, but we would do that a lot. Like we would get packs of them and then we would literally light them and try to smoke them.
How'd that go?
So, I mean, it turned out great. I don't think it went really well. I think we were honestly just what we were doing was burning paper and inhaling it. So yeah. So I mean, it's just funny. It's just interesting to notice that. But then the next thing was drinking. So the first time I drank was summer before 8th grade, and I had met some girls in school, and they had met some guys that were in high school, and they said, "Hey, you want to go to the beach with us? We're going to go to the beach, and we're going to go to this guy's house." And he had a little, they called it the cave. Basically, the underneath of his house was dug out. And these were the girls that I really wanted to be cool with. These were girls that I thought were, I never really fit in at that time. It was like, I'm not bad enough to be a bad kid, but I wasn't good enough to be a good kid. So it's kind of in this gray area, and wanted to be in both groups, but just didn't really know how. And they were going to the cave. They were going under there. And I mean, I have the very stereotypical alcohol first experience. We're sitting in a circle and they're passing around the bottle, and the bottle gets to me, and I look around and I see them all looking at me. And it's like this moment of choice, and I drink the alcohol, and then boom, I really do remember that feeling of, oh, hello, this is it. This is game on. Yeah.
Ease
we're
and comfort.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it was Goldschlager.
Oh God.
And it tastes like cinnamon Tic Tacs to me. And so it was just, and then it kept going around and around and around. And yeah, that was the first time I drank. And I felt immediate relief from that anxiety, that outsiderness I felt.
Right. You immediately belonged.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting to me how so often our first alcohol is just the worst kind of alcohol. No one ever starts with good champagne. Okay, well, that's not true. Maybe some people do, but I don't know them. Whoever
I don't know them either.
Really good alcohol. It's like some wine cooler and Goldschlager.
Yes.
Okay. So life gets really good in the cave. You're like, I've arrived. Yeah. I'm under a house, and take me from there.
That day, ended up making out with one of the high school guys. And then my sister came to pick me up to take me to soccer practice.
This is day drinking.
Oh, this is day drinking. This is not night drinking. We started off day drinking. And I go to soccer practice, and I remember my sister picks me up, and she's like, I'm sure she had already drinking at this time in her life. She's 4 years older than me. So she probably knew I was drunk. And I remember being like, I can't go to soccer practice. And she's like, you have to go to soccer practice. Mom told me to pick you up and take you to soccer practice. And I remember getting there, soccer practice, and I remember we were doing a warm-up drill, and I kept missing the ball, going to kick it and just falling and laughing. And I mean, it was fun. I knew I shouldn't have been drunk, but I also was having a good time. And I remember my coach dismissed me from practice and made me just run the entire practice. So I was just running and running. And I don't think I had a consequence for that. I don't think anyone ever found out that I was drinking.
Did the coach know?
I think the coach, I know the coach knew, but I didn't get in trouble by anyone. So he must not have told my parents or anything. But yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. What happened from there? How did it progress?
Yeah. So it kind of was like that, I would always kind of drink at the wrong time. It was before soccer practice or before, a dance or before it, but I never really got in trouble. I never got caught, or I would do a really good job at, staying at someone's house that night And we got really creative. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. We got really creative. We had this one guy's grandma who would call our parents for us. And she would say, yeah, she's going to stay over, and would like talk to them, even though like we were all going to go out partying. And it wasn't every weekend. It was like maybe once a month. And, it was kind of rinse and repeat. It was drink, get too drunk, throw up, piss someone off, probably threw up in someone's car, make out with someone, hate myself, and then be excited to do it again.
Yep.
And it was just kind of, but it was never, I didn't wake up and drink in the morning type of thing. But when I was 15, I did have my first hospital visit. And that was a night where I drank 99 bananas.
Oh my!
I can finally eat bananas now after like 10 years of being sober, but 99 bananas. I drank like an entire bottle trying to be cool. Ended up in the hospital throwing up blood. I don't remember any of it. The cops asked my sister if I spoke a different language, and
my God.
They're like, does she speak Arabic, or like what does she speak? Because no one knows. And all I recall from that entire night is drinking the bottle on a playground, on a swing. And then I remember looking up with like bright lights over my face and telling them my sister's number, but like saying it wrong because hers and my mom's number were one number off. And I'd be like, no, don't call that number. Call this other number. And then,
So you were 15. Oh my gosh. So you end up at the hospital. And do you remember the hospital at all, or did you come to when you got home?
No, I came to when I got home, and my mom luckily had just started dating this guy, and they were out of town. They had come back the next day. And luckily my mom found out when the guy was there. So she kept her cool because I don't know why. It's like he ended up being basically my stepdad for 11 years after that. But luckily he was there. I remember being like, thank God this guy is here. He's the only reason I'm not literally dead. And so I got grounded for a couple weeks. I was very upset about that. And yeah, that was kind of just that, I don't know how long after that I drank again. It was just like that all throughout high school and then into college, same thing, blackout drinking. I had a couple more hospital stays. I found out something that I really like to drink in excess. So when I do drink, it's a nightmare. And so it was like, of course, I wouldn't drink for at least a bit of time in between because it was such a nightmare. I would clean it up, have to pick up the pieces.
So, okay. So this is one of those things that I hear a lot, which is well, I don't drink every day, or I haven't had a drink in 3 weeks, or, just a lot of these stereotypes that you have to drink a certain way in order to have a problem. And I think what's really interesting is that yours is a perfect example of a situation where it's like binge drinking in its truest form. Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing that was confusing to my family, especially when I got sober, which I know we'll get to, but they were very confused because I didn't drink every day. So they were like, what are you talking about? But it's not about how often you drink, it's the way you drink and what happens. So it's I have a sip of alcohol, it's game over. I'm not a moderate drinker. I never had the intention of being a moderate drinker. I mean, there were times where I would go out with the intention of having a glass of wine, but it never happened. I mean, maybe one Tuesday in 92, I maybe had one drink, but for the most part it was disaster.
So when did you realize that your drinking was not like other people's drinking? Was there ever a time in this rinse and repeat that other people weren't doing what you were doing?
Oh yeah. I think college was where I really got. High school, I think a lot of people are drinking and we're really crazy because we're out of the house and we're finally free of our parents and blah, blah, blah. And in high school, it's I think a lot of people are over drinking, drinking too much. College, I went to UCLA, people were still drinking too much, but I was the one that was not coming home at night. I was the one who was losing, I would literally leave my entire purse with everything in it at the bar, and they would hold it for me because they would know it was mine. It was just I was the one that was a total nightmare. And the thing that really distinguished it for me is that even if I didn't do anything quote unquote wrong, I had that feeling, which is described in the big book, of incomprehensible demoralization. And my friends didn't have that. So I would wake up feeling like I need to die. And they would wake up and be like, that was a crazy night.
Right.
And I'm like, no, my soul has been ripped from my body and I can't like be on this earth anymore. So it was just like such a depressive episode for me after drinking. And so not for them. Like it was just, I just never understood. And I was like, no one understands what I feel. So it was really dark.
With the hospital visits, what did you think about the fact that alcohol was landing you there? Did that occur to you as maybe abnormal? Maybe.
Yeah. Abnormal, yes. I think the funniest thing was when there was one time I went to the hospital and I was at UCLA and my mom came to pick me up and I was certain that I got drugged. I was like, I got drugged. Like that is what happened. And they were like, no, we did all the tests. I was like, no, there is no way, because I had a glass of wine and I woke up in the hospital and they were adamant. No, we tested everything. You did not get drugged. So on the outtake form, it said, don't drink so much. Like suggestions, don't drink so much. And I was like, so at that point, it's like, it was so normalized. Yes, at UCLA, but then this is a big part of my story, is that I worked in the action sports industry. So I was on tour with skate, motocross, BMX, surf. Like I was all over the country doing these action sports things. So if you weren't blacking out in that industry, you weren't doing it right. I mean, at least with the people I rolled with, like we all blacked out.
Right.
All the time. So it was very normal in that setting. At UCLA, it was a little bit not normal, or less normal at least.
So you found your people.
Yeah, I found my people and I loved it. And they were so fun. And it was like, luckily a bunch of guys who like took care of me, honestly. Like they would pick me up, drag me, put me in bed.
Right.
And luckily they were good people.
Yeah.
So
what happened from there? When did you start to feel that feeling of can't live with it, can't live without it?
When I started really seeing it in college. I really wanted, I always had this yearning to be like a spiritual person. So I would start to study Buddhism. I would take like yoga classes and I would start to really like seek something. And then I'd get drawn back into the drink. I'd train for a marathon, get drawn back into the drink. I'd start working out and like eating healthy. And I was always on these like health kick benders where I'm like, I'm not going to drink. Da, da, da. I had my drunk calendar and I would mark the days I blacked out and what I ate that day, because I thought for sure it was because I had tacos instead of a salad, or it was because like, I just didn't understand, or I didn't believe that it was the drinking. So I think I really started to understand it was a problem when I graduated from college, and it just didn't stop, because everyone kept saying too, like, oh, you'll outgrow it. It will stop. Right. Everyone, it's just what you do in college. And like, apparently it's what you do out of college as well. So I was 22 when I got sober. So I had graduated college. I got sober the winter after that.
So why'd you get sober? What brought you there?
So I had another night and I really hurt somebody I was dating. I like made out with some other guy in front of this other guy I was dating. And I was in a complete blackout. I don't remember any of it. And so I swore off drinking. Like, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm so sorry. Like because it's like, when I was sober, I wasn't that type of person. When I was drinking, I literally had and I don't think that people that have not blacked out understand that when you're blacked out, you are really blacked out. It's not like I blacked out. I don't really remember what happened. It's like, I literally have it's like I was not even in my body functioning.
What's crazy about that, like, is that you actually, it's also not that you're necessarily like passed out either. You're fully acting out. You're fully functioning, for me, driving a car, whatever it is, like it's amnesia. It's not passed out.
Well, that's the scary part too, because my friends would say, I would have thought you were sober last night, and I would have no recollection, nothing, especially towards the end. It was almost every time I would black out. 99.9% of the time I blacked out when I drink. And when I quit drinking for those 30 days, because I had hurt that person, I felt so bad. So I quit drinking. And then of course I went on a snowboard tour, and I was like, well, I think I'm fine. Some people gave me some free drink tickets, and I drank one last time. And that night blacked out after 2 drinks. And I remember having the first one. I'm in Breckenridge, Colorado, and and then I have the second one, altitude on top of everything, plus being an alcoholic. And I passed out in the snow in negative 17-degree weather.
Oh my God.
And luckily some random people found me I don't know how long I was out there, and they took me home with them. And it was just like, I woke up in the morning and again, no idea, same thing. It wasn't any different, but I walked out from this bedroom having no idea where I was, having nothing with me. And there was a girl on the couch and I'm just crying. And she was like, don't worry, sweetie. I wake up in random houses all the time. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this isn't fun. I don't know what happened last night. I like checked myself, like checked in with myself. I'm like, hey, I don't think anything like quote unquote bad happened, but I don't know. And it was just a very scary moment. And then I had to get to work, and it was just like, so that day I started Googling blacking out. And I was like, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be like an EpiPen or like something. Because I really didn't believe it was because of the alcohol. I thought I had an allergic reaction. Turns out I do, but a different type. I thought it was like a peanut allergy or like shellfish, or, I didn't think it was drinking too much or alcoholism.
You break out and black out.
Yeah. People say they break out in handcuffs. Yeah. Exactly. I break out and black out. Totally. 100%.
So
there's no illusion for me there anymore.
so you started Googling blackout. What'd you find?
Well, I found the alcoholic test.
Okay.
And I was like, and I remember I was sitting in my office and I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, so I took the test. I'm like, well, I didn't answer yes to all of them. And at the bottom, I think it said something like, if you answered yes to like 2 or 3 or more or whatever, then you might be an alcoholic. And I'd answered yes to like, I think there's 27 or something. I know I'd answered all but like 2, said yes to all of them. And so then somehow, I mean, this is all for me, divine intervention. There was a link somewhere in there to a meeting group online. And I clicked it and there was like a chat room and they had AA meetings online. And so you could go in there and there would be like a speaker, but they didn't speak. It wasn't like a FaceTime call. It was a chat room. So you never saw anyone's face, and they would share their experience, strength, and hope. And then people would push asterisk to share. And I remember I would like throw up on these meetings, but I didn't know what that was. So I would just go off in the chat room, just like, this is how I feel, blah, blah, blah. And I did that for 30 days.
That's when the years of AIM come in handy. You remember? Yeah. When you're like, if you grow up a 90s kid, then you had AIM and all the drama would take place on the instant messenger. And so you get so good at typing because you have got to get your opinion and the facts in there really fast. So I think that the online typing meeting was probably a good place for you to vomit those emotions because you had the AIM background.
It was so good for the AI. Yes, 100%. That, and also I truly believe that if it had been a face-to-face meeting, I don't think I would have ever been on it. I don't think that I had, because a lot of my stuff had to do with looking good and needing you to think that things were put together and be just falling apart. And so I don't know that I would have gotten sober if I went to an AA meeting in the beginning. But a guy told me, this guy Ian from New York, he was a gambler. He wasn't an alcoholic, he was a gambler. He's now, obviously I'm not going to say his last name, but this guy Ian, he's a lawyer in New York. He's a lawyer in New York. And he freaking Eskimo'd me, took me into a side chat room and was like, yo, you have a real issue. He's like, I really think you need to like go to a real meeting.
It's so, I've totally had that where it's like, you're in a group of people who are struggling and then someone's like, no, you're really struggling. Like you like, wait a minute. I thought this was a safe place.
Yeah, no. Ian was like, you need help. Like you really need help. Thank God for him. We still talk from time to time now. And he like probably single-handedly saved my life.
That's amazing.
And because like, again, although I like, it sounds, from what I said that my alcoholism was like, yeah, I went to the hospital a couple times, but like, let's be honest, there were times where I woke up and this girl had a gun to my head, like, because I'm throwing up all over her house, and she's like, pull it together, and she like throws me out of her house, like a off-duty cop picks me up and takes me home. Like there was things like that. I'm waking up in Vegas, not knowing how I got there. I mean, there were some real things that happened. So I could discount my alcoholism because it's so I didn't drink every day, but like every time there was a massive event, like it was a thing. It wasn't as sweet and innocent as I maybe made it sound.
Did you have the experience? I had this experience early on, not so much when we started to get into heavy drugs, but early on where I was like, trouble finds me, where like I really thought that I coincidentally ended up in these crazy scenarios, like just hang out with me, trouble will find me, like no understanding that my behavior maybe caused some of this stuff. Was that like, were you, these events, did you link them to the drinking at the time?
No, my friends always just said I was the fun one. I always found the people, I don't know that I even was really honest with my friends too much about these like big occurrences that happened, because I was just like, I don't think I was on. There was a lot of like, alcoholism also had like a lot of shame, so I would leave details out, and I would glamorize a lot of things, like waking up in Vegas, and I like woke up in Vegas and we were in this big huge like suite, and there was like all this money, but like I didn't tell them like how I was totally blacked out on the way. I don't remember getting there, and how these guys were probably drug dealers. And like, I would sort of leave that stuff out. But I also did have a way of meeting the quote unquote right people to get us in the club and in the line and meet these people to get into this event. And like, I could kind of finagle my way into situations that were also beneficial to people I was hanging out with. So there was good and bad,
Did they have a reaction to you getting sober?
Oh God, yes. They were like, why are you doing this to us? My best girlfriends were, a lot of people that were close to me were confused, to be honest. They did not understand why I was getting sober, which was really confusing to me in the beginning. And grateful I met the people I met when I first got sober, as far as like when I went to face-to-face meetings. But yeah, my friends were like, don't stop drinking, because they were drinking and they partied like normal people that you do when you're early 20s, what you do. And I was quite miserable to be around up until like 5 years sober, I would say, in situations where we'd go out. I was just so painfully uncomfortable in my skin, And that would come out as lashing out on people or being super insecure and uncomfortable and just awkward. So they were like, please drink. I mean, they never let me be the designated driver, because like, you need to drink.
Right.
You need to drink. They knew like I couldn't be the one that didn't drink.
So Ian tells you need help. This is serious. What happened for you when you went to the next meeting or the face-to-face meeting?
So I either IM or Facebook message a girl who I had met through the guy that I hurt, that I had originally gotten sober because of. And we had gone to dinner. I remember her saying, I don't drink, I'm sober. And we were drinking wine and she wasn't drinking. So I messaged her and I was like, I know you probably hate me because I hurt your friend, but I've been going to these online meetings and they said I should go to a real meeting. And they're like, not that my online meetings weren't real, but like I need to go to a face-to-face meeting. And, I was wondering if you know how those go, kind of things. I didn't know if she went to AA or not. And I didn't really fully understand what AA was at that time. But she said, I totally understand. And yes. And so she took me to my first meeting on a Monday night. And that meeting, I walked in, I was so uncomfortable. Like, wow. I just remember like looking around and being like, because honestly, my biggest thing was I was always like, I'm not cool enough. I never thought I was cool enough. That was always the language I had with myself. So I walked in there, it's like all the cool kids from high school. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, God, oh my God, they're so cool. And they've got tattoos. And like, I'm just not that cool. And so I immediately felt I was uncomfortable. I did not have that experience where I walked into the room and I was like, I'm home. No, I was like, this is awkward. But that was the first time I'd ever said out loud, I'm an alcoholic. And that was the first time that I really believed I'm an alcoholic, I think, in that room.
What did that feel like?
Really good. Because it felt like, oh, wow, all those years of therapy of lying about what was really going on. Because the therapist, over and over would ask me about my drinking and I would never tell her what was really happening. And so they would just give me new antidepressants. And not that there's anything wrong with antidepressants, but I was masking something there was an actual reason I was depressed. It wasn't a chemical imbalance because I was drinking and harming myself.
Right. It's really hard to treat depression when you're blacking out.
Yeah.
Note to self.
Turns out.
Yeah, turns out. Newsflash. Yeah. So you went to that first meeting and tell me about what the early recovery was like in your journey from there.
I don't know would call it recovery. Maybe white knuckling might be the word. I went to one meeting a week for 6 months. I did not get a sponsor. I was super confused about that because I remember I was at a young people's meeting and I was like, I don't want anything any of these people have. And I didn't because I wasn't looking at the recovery side of it. I was looking at what they had, what they actually had.
Stuff.
So I was like, exactly. I was like, I didn't know it meant spiritually what they have. And so
just for people who don't know, they say you find a sponsor by looking for somebody that you want what they have, as in their life, relationships, etc.
Yeah. And so I didn't find a sponsor. And then finally this girl had said, oh, you should come to this women's meeting. And I went to the women's meeting. It was a 90-minute meeting, which was just really tough for me. And at the break, I was like, I think I'm going to leave and drink. At that point, I didn't know yet that I had issues with women. I didn't know. I was like, oh, I'm free and I love everyone and love life. I would write love life on everything. And so I thought, I don't have a problem with women. Women have a problem with me. And so I was going to leave during the break. And then I decided not to. The girl was like, you should stay. And so I stayed, actually met my sponsor that night. And that I remember seeing this woman. I remember her sharing. She was freaking hilarious. I remember she just had a glow. She had a way about her. And I was like, that human needs to be my sponsor. I don't know what a sponsor is or what they do, but I like her. And so I totally stalked her to her car after the meeting. And I was like, please be my sponsor. And she was so sweet. And she said, are you willing to go to any lengths to stay sober? Had no idea what that meant. I said, yes, because I knew that's what she wanted me to say. And then, I went from there. So she was my first sponsor. She's still kind of my sponsor, but I moved. So
how long were you sober when that happened?
About 6 months.
Okay. About 6 months.
And I did not have any emotional sobriety. So I didn't get why people were so happy because I didn't have any freedom.
Talk to us about emotional sobriety.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, I was white knuckling it, which that means basically you're just not drinking no matter what, but you're struggling. That's how I interpret it, at least. It's like that. Oh, I'm just not going to drink. That feeling. And my ego was such an asset because I wanted to not have to come back to that meeting. I never took a newcomer chip because I didn't go to a meeting in my first 30 days. So I was like, I never want to have to take that chip. So my ego really worked for me in the beginning. And then, so I was still they say that alcohol isn't the problem, it's the solution. So I've got this whole whirlwind of problems, which is all in my head. I've got a self-centered disease. So I'm totally all about Brittney's world, what I'm thinking, what I'm fearing, how I'm feeling, what I need, what I want. And I am just completely self-obsessed and in pain because you took away my medicine. And again, even though I didn't drink every day, I looked forward to that reprieve, that feeling of, oh, okay, I don't have to think about myself right now or think about anything, to be honest. It gave me that break from my head, which if you're an untreated alcoholic, you know how painful that is. And so, so I started working with her, and then she introduced me to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I read it and I just did what she said. She said to do steps, which are, the 12 steps, which end us up in freedom. And that was the first time I'd gotten honest with someone truly, fully. I told her everything, stuff that I was never going to tell anyone ever in my entire life.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful thing, I think the reason I got so much emotional sobriety from her is because she taught me unconditional love. I would tell her things that I thought, this is maybe the moment that she says, you need to go to jail, or, for feeling this way, or even if the stuff, the quote unquote, bad stuff I did, she just loved me through it and was like, it's okay. We're going to work through this and you're going to let go. And that really gave me the freedom to start holding my head a little higher and feeling a lot better about myself. So that was for about 6 months. We started doing going through the steps. And then I got a job where I started traveling for work, and then enters the next phase of white knuckle sobriety. And I started traveling, wasn't going to meetings. And then I picked up my new favorite addiction, which came from my childhood, food. I don't know if you want me to go into that now.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I learned what it's like to have recovery, to not have recovery and stay sober. So I'm white knuckling. Then I get a sponsor. I do the steps. I get spiritual. I'm feeling connected to a higher power of my own understanding. I am, really flourishing, feeling good. I start to get the things back, the gifts of sobriety that you can get back. Not everyone gets them, but I got the promises, oh God, I started getting jobs. Like I just, started feeling like, oh, like I got this. I don't need anything. I'm good. So when I started doing that travel for work, I learned very quickly that this really is a disease that is centered in my mind. And it really does have nothing to do with alcohol, which is so crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. You bring it with you.
Yeah, I just brought every plane I got on. Guess who came with me? Me, myself, and I.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out that my anxiety and my depressive nature at times went through the roof without solution. My new solution was meetings and fellowship and talking to other alcoholics and having a sponsor. Getting completely disconnected left me in exactly the same amount of pain as I was before I got sober. So I knew I wasn't going to drink because I was like, my ego was still really helping me at that point. So what did I do? Next best thing, food. Oh, you give me you give me an expense account, get in a hotel room, your girl can do some damage. Mm-hmm. Like 70 pounds in a year worth of damage.
Oof.
And I learned the depth of a new level of depression, a new kind of depression. Because again, I grew up playing sports and I'd always struggled with the binge eating, but I was always like still kind of a normal size, I didn't feel good in my skin. And I always wanted to be smaller and I always wanted to be thinner and all of that stuff. But I still wasn't, I still wasn't a size 18. And not that there's something wrong with a size 18, but for me, who's normally like a 5, to go to a size 18 is a big change. And so I put on a lot of weight. And I remember coming home from being gone for like a year, basically on and off, and seeing my mom. And she was like, what happened?
Oh God.
But not in a mean way. She was genuinely concerned. She's like, wait, excuse me? Like, what's going on here? She could tell something very wrong.
What'd you say?
I said, well, can you help me? And so then I went on a massive crash diet. Mm-hmm. after many a crash diets. Because in this period of time, I recognized I was not blind. I knew I was gaining weight. And I also worked with a team who really co-signed the weight gain. Like, they're like, it's fine. You're good. You look great. And I was doing, on tour, I was doing crash diets. One week I'm doing Atkins. The next week I'm only eating bars. The next week I'm getting juices delivered to my hotel room. The next week I'm, whatever. It was all over the map. I think I did like 30 crash diets or something. And so I did one last final crash diet when I came home, where you eat 500 calories a day and you take some hormones, mm-hmm. and you starve yourself for 40 days. And I did it, and I lost 30 pounds, and I gained all of it back plus 10 in 2 weeks after I completed it. And it was epic.
And gosh, that sounds so familiar.
Does it?
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. So weird.
Yeah. So that was my last bottom with the food. And then I had to go to yet another 12-step program for food.
Oh God.
Here I go, moseying on back in utter defeat, going, but I didn't drink.
Yeah.
But I felt just as bad.
So it's interesting. I mean, you and I know each other's, and that this is something that I struggle with, and it's come up so much in sobriety. And like, I too relate to that, getting the emotional sobriety, like feeling good, feeling free, and particularly Southern California, Alcoholics Anonymous, just the women loving you and just the cool factor and all that. Like I talked about that. And then like you hit a point, and I think for me at least, and I've seen this happen a lot, which is we're sober for some time, and then our toolbox does not evolve at the pace that our life does. Mm. And I think my life has evolved much faster than I've been able to emotionally, therapeutically evolve. And so what happens is we start to need another solution, and we know we can't drink, and then maybe we know we can't hook up with lots of guys, and because that doesn't fill our self-esteem anymore. And we know we can't, mm-hmm. add in all the other things. We can't gamble, or we can't this, or we can't shop. And so you start to like, oh my God, what's left? What's mm-hmm. left? And this is the acceptable. And it comes back to that, the acceptable thing that you mm-hmm. can do. And lo and behold, for me, the place where I have come to see my disease in its purest, most, just the most unadulterated form is with the food, because my alcoholism is alive and well. And that scares the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
What was you? So you went to OA?
Love that. Yes.
Okay. So what 12-step program did you end up in?
So I ended up going to OA, which was Overeaters Anonymous. And just that name in itself was like the sexy thing I'd ever heard. I was like, Overeaters Anonymous? What kind of shit is this? Like, can we call it like Foodies Anonymous?
Yeah.
Or like
Foodies. Yeah. Or like Problem Eating Anonymous.
Yeah.
It's the least sexy. Like, I'd rather go to like some sort of, I'm not even going to say on this, but you're like anything but Overeaters Anonymous.
I did Too Many Crash Diets Anonymous, like something, but like Overeaters Anonymous. Oh, I went to my first meeting, and luckily my sponsor was also in that program. So I just went with her, and I went, and people, again, like, I'll be honest, it felt really damn good to hear people talk about food the way that I talked about food, that were as weird with food as I was with food. I mean, we're talking going through drive-thrus, pretending I'm on the phone so I can order more food so they don't think that it's for me. Again, just to come back to it. Everything with my alcoholism is shame-based and hiding. So everything I did was about hiding and being in shame. And fake birthday cakes, going to the store, being like, yo, her name's Sarah. And, and then I would go to the extent of buying birthday candles and maybe some streamers, something, because they're going to freaking know that I'm buying a cake for myself to eat in the parking lot. No, they have no idea. But again, I'm like, the world's out to get me. They know. And again, this is my quote unquote hood reference, not to say anything about the hood or sound weird about that, but it was I had this mentality that people were out to get me and coming at me. And so I need to buy birthday streamers that you think it's for. I would literally pretend I was going to a party of one in the parking lot. And I'd be like, okay. Or in the hotel rooms, turning on the showers and being like, babe, our food's here, and ordering a salad and a pizza and a dessert. I mean, yeah, your dessert looks great.
Yeah.
The room service person does not care, but my self-centered disease tells me they know. Oh, they know.
And it makes all of this stuff not enjoyable, right? Because it's there's fear of running out. It's all the same stuff, right? It's making it look normal, taking out the details, kind of like you talked about with the alcoholism, winding. Oh, we wound up in Vegas, whatever. So you're removing the details. You're at, positioning it the way you want, and then it's not pleasant. It's actually if we actually take the temperature of how we're feeling when we're into that, it's that's not an enjoyable thing. You're in the parking lot at Safeway eating a cake, happy birthday, streamers. I really hope you did something with how many times did you buy streamers?
I actually have no idea, but I would just throw it all away. And then it's when I would throw it away in a dumpster, I would cover it with other trash. It'd be a random dumpster. This is how neurotic I was about it, or in my head about it. It's I would cover other trash over it, even if the trash can was nowhere near my house. No one knows that you ate this cake or that anything happened, but you're in a dumpster covering it with other trash to hide it from who? Who are you hiding the cake from, Brittney? Who is watching? No one.
No one's watching, but you're sober. You're sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, right?
Yeah.
So you have that behind you, which, you talked about the untreated alcoholism, and there are a few things, I won't say nothing worse, but there are a few things that are as painful as untreated alcoholism emotionally. It is so terrible to have the brain, the disease, the talking, the loudness in your head, the loudspeaker, and not have any solution. It's better to drink in some of those scenarios than our disease requires a solution. That's bottom line. It's just which one you pick.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. Exactly.
You went to Overeaters Anonymous. You're like, oh my gosh, sexy's not coming back. What happened? Not bringing sex.
So Not bringing sexy back. So I had like moments or bouts of bulimia. So I had moments or bouts, it's very much like my alcoholism. Didn't throw up every day. Wasn't that big of an issue. But sometimes I ate too much. So I had to throw up. Like, duh. It wasn't I ate something, so I'm going to throw up. It was I ate too much and like I'm literally throwing up involuntarily. And there were times where it was definitely like, I'm going to drink more water so I can throw up easier. Like I was definitely planning things out as well. But it was very much I ate so much, I physically am like laying on my bed trying not to throw up. And then it's like, I'll have to do a stand up. And so my bottom line when I got what they call it in Overeaters Anonymous is abstinent, not sober. So I got abstinent. It was bottom line, no throwing up, no matter what. So my sponsor's like, hey, what I want you to do is I want you to send me your food, no matter what it looks like. And I was like, you want me to send me my what? So like, I remember the first 3 days I was like, yeah, I had a protein shake and then I had like an apple with almond butter. And then I had, chicken and lettuce and then salmon with asparagus for like the first 3 days. And then I had a protein shake, apple and almond butter, chicken and lettuce, 5-pack Skittles, a Ben & Jerry's, and another protein shake. And it was like that. So in the beginning, my food was perfectly imperfect is what we called it. And I sent it no matter what. And that was I don't know why that makes me emotional. It makes me super emotional because what my sponsor taught me is it didn't matter because no matter what I sent her, she always wrote back perfect food, no matter what. If I didn't throw up, perfect food, perfect. Doesn't matter what it was. It was about me taking the shame out of it. It was me saying, I am willing to go to any lengths. I'm willing to send you my food, no matter what it says. And we're just going to let it go. And eventually it turned from 4 packs of Skittles to 3, from 5 to 4 to 4 to 3, 3 to 2. Then it was like every 2 days. And then it was like every week. And then I really got present to the fact that I do sugar like I do alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I don't really have a control over what happens once I have it. And what I realized is that sugar makes my life and choices much more complicated. Doesn't mean that now, I can tell you what I do now, but back then I really needed that hard line of like, I'm not going to eat this substance because I don't trust myself when I have it. And that's okay. For me, it was a big deal to say, that's okay. I don't have to have this substance to live my life. Just like I didn't have to have alcohol to live my life. And I'll figure it out. If I could quit drinking, I could quit doing sugar. And so she really taught me how to be unconditionally honest. Oh God. That was like the deepest, that was harder than sharing any of my alcohol stuff was sharing my food. That was like very, very vulnerable for me. Mm-hmm. That was that was my food. That's my ride or die. And now I'm just like sharing it,
Just telling you what I'm eating. Like it's no big deal.
Because it meant something about me at that point.
Yeah. I get
that. That was just like, that really meant something. And it didn't have to, but it did at that time.
So take us on your journey from there to today.
Yeah. Okay. So then the food, it kind of got, I would get better. I would get better, AKA I would lose weight. Because at that time I wasn't really seeing OA as a spiritual program. I was seeing it as a weight loss program. And so I was going to OA to lose weight. So that started happening. And then I stopped going because I'd be like, oh, well, I'm losing weight and I'm fine. And then I'd get weird with food again. And so it's kind of like this back and forth. And then I finally got in this place where I just started feeling kind of normal with food. I still don't really know what normal with food is, but for all intents and purposes, the most normal I had been. I wasn't hiding my food, what I was eating. I wasn't hiding wrappers. I was like eating in front of people. My other new abstinence was no sneak eating. That was a big one for me. It's like, I remember I'd be in the in the kitchen, and my boyfriend at the time, I'd be like, I'm eating a spoonful of peanut butter because he'd be in the other room.
No sneak eating.
And he'd be like, okay, I'm going back for another one. Got it. But
rigorous honesty.
I had to be that way though, because I'm so capable of being a sneaky little bugger. I'm really good at that part, but just sneaky. And so, especially with food. And so yeah, things got weird. Better. I started really getting interested in running, and that became a really awesome outlet for me. So I remember I was really uncomfortable because in the beginning people were like, you're running too much. I was doing marathons and I loved it. But I remember when my sponsor had me do some writing on it, and it was like, no, I love running. It wasn't like I'm running to run weight off. It was just like, it was my meditation. It was my new high. And again, I'm a creature of more. You want me to run a 5K? Let's do a marathon. Let's do an ultra marathon. And I loved it. And I loved the culture. I loved the community and the people. And it was so fun. And weight just started coming off and I felt really good. And then I got super into health and fitness and people started asking me more questions. I was still working my full-time job. So I started getting really into nutrition and started studying it kind of on my own and trying to help other people with their stuff. And then what happened? Oh, then I decided So what happened when I ran a lot is I lost my whole butt. The whole thing, it just fell off. And this is whatever. I know it's going to sound vain, but it's okay. And so I was like, I really want to build a butt. And I had seen this is like the Instagram era at this time. It just started. So there were a couple girls on Instagram who were kind of selling booty building programs and stuff. And it all included weightlifting. And I always had a very big fear of weight because I didn't want to quote unquote look like a man. I was very anti-weightlifting. And so, but then I started lifting weights and I was like, this is it. This is awesome. And it didn't take as much time as running because I was going on these 3-hour runs. It took an hour and I could eat more. And I just loved it. And so I started lifting weights and doing HIIT training and all that stuff. And my food at this time was, I don't think that I really understood that I was under eating. I thought I was eating a normal amount. But I was probably under eating a little bit, but I don't think that I knew I was under eating, if that makes sense. I think I was eating not to talk about calories, but 12, 13, 1400 calories, but that's what we're marketed at. That's what, every magazine cover says, the perfect 1200 calorie diet, the perfect 1500. So I didn't really know. I thought that was just normal.
Right.
And so, but looking back at it, I was probably under eating a little bit at that time. Fast forward again, I got really into lifting and decided to do my first bikini competition.
Oh yeah.
In abstinence, which is super anti-abstinence. And, in the OA world, it was really frowned upon. So I stopped going to OA because they were like, what are you doing? Actually, let me retract that. They never said you can't do a bodybuilding show and be in OA, but I decided I can't do a bodybuilding show and be in OA because they're going to think I'm weird. And so I stopped going and then things got complicated. So I was getting ready for this show and following their plan. My coaches had me on a very low calorie plan, which again, I just trusted what someone said. So I did their plan, but then I was binging every other week and it was just not a very spiritual time in my food. And then after the show ended, it was game on. So after that first bodybuilding show, I had to re-surrender because I had gained 30 pounds in a month after the show. It was game on after that show. It was really scary. And I honestly, I had 30 pounds to gain because I had just done a bodybuilding show. And if you're not familiar with bodybuilding shows, you get really, really lean.
Yeah. You were thin.
Yeah, I was very small. And I remember friends were like, what is wrong with you? But I was also working out at a bodybuilding gym and they're like, you're perfect. This is exactly how you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And, but people were concerned and I knew I'm only going to be this lean for this amount of time, but I did not need to gain the weight in the way I did, but I had no spiritual tools. So I just went to town. And so then I got to re-surrender in the OA program. I went back and I found a sponsor about a year ago, a little over a year ago, to re-surrender again. And so I've been working with her for about a year, but my abstinence again changed again. We don't even talk about food when I talk to her. It's so weird. It has so nothing to do with the food. Now, it's a whole new level. I'm working the steps and doing the work in that program. And it's the food rarely comes up. The only time I'm doing another bodybuilding show, actually.
I know. And that's awesome.
And it's, we were talking the other day and she's like, how does the energy feel now? And I'm like, this is a night and day, completely different experience this time.
What's different?
And I think that the reason I did the first one is because I was in Vegas for my 30th birthday and my friends coerced me or forced me into this bikini competition and I wanted to die. I was so uncomfortable and they put me up there, and I was like, this is the worst day of my life. And I thought, and I'd always kind of thought like I'd love to do a show. And when we left there, I was like, dude, I just turned 30. When am I ever going to do this? Like, if I ever want to like have kids or anything, not that you can't do a bodybuilding show after that, but I'm like, my life is not going to be about my body ever, you know, or like, again, not that, yeah, it's not about that, but it's like, I'm not going to ever have this amount of time to focus on myself, because it's a self-absorbed sport. It's very much about you. And so the energy behind that was, I'm going to lose this weight and I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. And like that was the energy. And this one, I think it's just different and more grounded. I got a coach who is sober, and he's 17 years sober, and he is just a gem. He's like just a very spiritual person. And we have he is understanding of my eating disorder and my issues. And like, we've talked through it all. And so we're approaching it in a very spiritual way. And I've been brought in meditation, and I'm also being very transparent on Instagram and like sharing my thoughts and what's going on, and really trying to, quite honestly, bring a little bit more of a spiritual side into the bodybuilding world, because I don't think that it's mutually exclusive. I think that you can do both. And I think that you just have to, it's like, I've had to up my program, put my program on steroids. Don't worry, I'm not on steroids, but I'm also a natural athlete, which is a big thing in the industry as well. But it is, you know, I have had to up my meetings. I've had to up my journaling, my meditation. I talk to my sponsor every single day, no matter what. Like, I'm keeping everything in a very spiritual row. And I have some friends that are keeping me super accountable. And it's just a different experience. So, you know, even with that being said, I'm like, oh, people would probably wonder, like, why would you do this? Why would you do this?
Explain yourself.
I'm like, let me just ask myself the question, Brittney, why would you do this? So just like the running, like I truly loved running. I truly am an athlete at heart. Like, I'm an athlete. I love to compete. I love to push myself to new boundaries, and it's exciting. It's exciting to like become a different version of yourself, because this takes a mental side of myself that I've never known. Like, it takes I don't mean physically, I mean mentally. I have to literally become a different person in order to pursue this goal. And that's exciting to me. That growth and what it's taking me and the way it's pushing me spiritually is actually way cooler than I anticipated.
That's awesome. So you've maintained 65, 70 pound weight loss.
Yeah.
And I know that you were on some TV shows, and that you have this incredible following on Instagram, and you have, you're a personal trainer and a coach, and you've created this community for yourself in, at the Mecca of bodybuilding in Venice Beach. And it's such a cool life. And it's so interesting that it required this these phases of surrender, because it feels to me such authentic sobriety.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just like the continuation of surrender, just the bringing you to your knees every few years.
Yeah. But in the best way possible. Because it's like, every time, I think the biggest thing that sobriety has given me is the ability to understand and to truly believe that everything is temporary, the good and bad. It's all temporary. And it's not all happening at you or to you. It's happening for you. And I really do believe that. And there's no way that I would be where I am now if I hadn't gone through every single thing I've gone through, whether it was self-propelled or, just the universe at work. Like, I wouldn't have what I have today, which I am so grateful for, if it wasn't for all of these surrendering opportunities before.
Opportunities. Yeah, I do know. And I, not only do I know, but I've gotten to watch a lot of yours, and it's been really cool, and to see that change, and to watch, you lay the groundwork and achieve your dreams and goals. And I think it's a different type of sobriety when you keep, I think some people, they get sober and they kind of stick with the same stuff for a long time. And if the disease is really loud for you, then it's there, and you have to keep evolving at a much faster pace. And I know you and I definitely relate on that. So Brittney, your life today, you talked a little bit about your bodybuilding. What else do you have going on?
I started a company, Lean Lifestyle Method. I started a program, I should say. My company is just me, basically. But I started a coaching program called Lean Lifestyle Method. And it is a 3-month transformational program for women who I wouldn't say have an eating disorder, but might be a little bit weird with food. So this isn't the girl who is really struggling as anorexic or bulimic. This is a girl who does not know how to take time for herself. Maybe she's, busy executive and takes care of everyone else, but doesn't ever take an hour for herself to like pause and eat lunch type of person. Usually
disordered eating.
Yeah, disordered. I call it weird with food.
Okay.
Disordered feels a little serious.
Okay.
It's not, you know what I mean? Like disordered. But maybe they're like a little weird with food. They might catch themselves. They're the type of person who just needs to be like reminded to pause.
Okay.
Type of thing. And so I have that program, and that has turned into it makes me want to cry. It just turned into the most incredible group of women I've ever met. It's magical. Like, there's all these movements, we talk about like women support women and, you got to empower each other. And we talk about that stuff, and it's like very nice to hear and a nice saying to have on a shirt. And what I've found is not that many people are practicing that. And what I found in these groups of women is it's like, holy guaca freaking moly. These women are doing the deal. They are learning how to show up for each other in the most powerful way. And witnessing people who say they're like in their application, like, I'm not really a girl's girl, witnessing that being the person who becomes the biggest cheerleader and teaching them how to be vulnerable and open. Because like, again, it's about the food, but it's not about the food.
Right.
And so we talk about food in the group, and like in the beginning, it's the logistics and when to eat and how much to eat and how to do it and how to navigate different situations with family and restaurants and blah, 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 blah. But like, it ends up not being about that. We talk about everything else in their life, and that becomes the most magical thing. And I don't even know how to explain what happens. It's just incredible. So I just get to watch people's lives transform, and it feels like a mini sobriety, but it's like, it's weird. It's just, yeah.
That's really cool. Well, you've done an amazing thing with your life, and I know that you'll continue to do that. When is your show?
Thank you. June 29th in Tempe, Arizona.
Ooh, that'll be hot.
It will be hot, but at least it'll be dry because I have very large hair. And
yep, I relate to that too.
And it will really help with my hair. This is what I'm telling myself. It's going to be so hot.
It's going to be awesome. You're going to do great.
Yeah,
thank you so much for coming on and talking about that. Do you want to give any details about your program if people are interested, where they can find information about Lifestyle Lean Method or information about your coaching in LA?
Yeah, of course. So we have the next program starting in April. I'm actually going to announce the date tomorrow. Wait, I guess this is going to be later. So I can.
This is going to be, yeah. So the one after April, what's the one out? Do you know?
The one after April, I don't know yet.
Okay.
But you can follow me on Instagram. It's just at Brittney Carbone, Brittney, Carbone, Carbone. And I post on there all the time about, when the next program's coming up, what kind of coaching opportunities I have. And that's basically the main place that you can find me, or just www.brittneycarbone.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Britt. It's been amazing hearing your story all over again. And I know that you will touch lots of lives.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. You're an incredible human being and such a badass woman. So thank you.
The Courage to Change, a recovery podcast, would like to thank our sponsor, Lion Rock Recovery, for their support. Lion Rock Recovery provides online substance abuse counseling where you can get help from the privacy of your own home. For more information, visit www.lionrockrecovery.com/podcast. Subscribe and join our podcast community to hear amazing stories of courage and transformation. We are so grateful to our listeners and hope that you will engage with us. Please email us comments, questions, anything you want to share with us, how this podcast has affected you. Our email address is podcast@lionrockrecovery.com. We want to hear from you.